Hey, it's your boy Big Baby Miller here, #1 heavyweight prospect in America, national kickboxer, K1 and Glory superstar. Listen, I'm here to talk to you about an awesome product, #1 sponsor athlete with Species Nutrition, and it's my favorite product right here, Isolize Protein. I'm telling you, when your body's feeling hurt and need a reboost, Isolize is the product to go. I love cinnamon donut, and I'm telling you right now, the best thing I love about this product is easy to mix, on the go. Isolize is the way to go. It's your boy Big Baby Miller. I'm the baddest motherfucker in America. What species are you?
Welcome inside the RxMuscle studios for another episode of Ask Dave, better known as #AskDave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Go to speciesnutrition.com, get 20% off 44-serve Isolize, buy one, get one free on macadamia nut oil, free shipping for purchases of $100 or more in the continental U.S. states. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. 30-minute question and answer with Dave Palumbo. Anything is on the table. Training, diet, supplementation, questions about the previous Olympia, the Prague Pro, the Arnold Classic in Europe. It is all on the table as we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, last week, a special episode with Rich Gaspari that is still drawing a lot of buzz. You had him last week in studio here on Live With.
Yeah, Rich is, I've been trying to get him in here for a while, and he had contacted me, and, I guess he had seen some of the great stuff we were doing, and he was really excited. It took him like 3 hours to drive here because there was a lot of traffic, came in from, South Jersey, brought his daughter with him. And it was a great, obviously Live With is normally a 20-minute show, but with Rich, you got to go longer. So it was a good hour with him. And I think we got some great stuff. What was even more exciting was I got a phone call yesterday from 8-time Mr. Olympia, Lee Haney. And Lee Haney saw the Rich Gaspari interview, and he was really, really impressed with it. And now he wants to come on Live With. So when you get 8-time Mr. Olympia calling you to help, to come on your show, it makes you feel pretty good. So hopefully within the next week or two, we'll get Lee Haney on because he's got a big show coming up down in Atlanta, Georgia there on October 31st, Halloween. So we might be even doing something with Lee regarding that show, but that'll be announced in the next couple of weeks or so. But I'm looking forward to getting him on the show, and I'm also looking forward to tomorrow night. Why don't you tell the viewers about that?
Well, see, that's where I was going to go because you got a mysterious phone call yesterday, and it was Lee Haney, and he said, "Hey, Dave, it's me, Lee." And he's like, "Lee who?" "Lee Haney." Come on, it's not really Lee Haney. And it really was. So we're going to have Lee Haney in the near future on Live With. But tomorrow night, Iron Debate returns. John Romano and Chris Osito duke it out. We haven't really gotten a chance to digest the Olympia and the post-Olympia tour. We're going to have an opportunity to do that. Big Ramy, is he staying with George Farah? Is he going with Chris Osito? A lot of question marks for his 2015-2016 contest prep. Which way is he going to go? Sean Roden, did he get overlooked this past contest season? Were his rankings, were his placings underseeded? We're going to debate that and a whole lot more. Iron Debate special time, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time tomorrow.
And you forgot Dennis James. Dennis James is the most controversial man on the panel, I think. He might even be supplanting John Romano. So it's Romano, Osito, and Dennis James.
When do we get Dennis James? This is a surprise to me.
You're not listening when I tell you. That's the problem. So, yeah, Dennis James is coming on. We had our Guru Mania a couple weeks before the Olympia, and Dennis wasn't part of that because he had been on the week before. So now we got him back to get his impressions of the Olympia and everything that went on. So, yeah, Dennis James will be a key person on this panel because we're going to be talking about Big Ramy, and probably no one knows him better than Dennis James.
It's like Wayne's World 2, where they're having Wayne stock and they just keep announcing new band after new band after new band. So there you have it. Dennis James, John Romano, Chris Osito, Iron Debate tomorrow night. If you want to join on the questions, you can join us on the Muscle Central Forum on RxMuscle.com. On our official Facebook page, you can tweet your questions using #AskDave. You can join us on our Instagram page, official_RxMuscle, or if you're watching on the livestream.com page on the chat box. So we go to the Muscle Central Forum and join our good friend BB50+. Dave and Sid, can you all make this show better, please? We'll try. My question is about classic physique. I just look at the height to weight specs, and it appears that Frank Zane at 5'9" and 190 pounds in parentheses, which is what he measured at arguably his best condition in 1979, would have to lose 5 pounds to 185 at 5'9" to enter a contest. Do you feel these height to weight standards are correct for what the NPC is trying to do? Also, are we going to see a 185-pound, 5'9" Dave in these shows anytime soon?
You'll probably be more likely to see a 5'9", 185-pound Sid in those shows before you see a 5'9", 185-pound Dave. So, first of all, let's talk about the division, because I think it's a great addition. I've been talking about this for a couple of years now, and I'm glad they put it together, and then they're making it happen. And from what I spoke to Steve Weinberger about, he says that they're going to be judging this the hardest, biggest guys. I mean, as long as you make that weight class for your height, you can be as big and as hard as you can, and then the biggest, hardest guys will win. So it is bodybuilding. It's just it's a controlled bodybuilding, as they call it. And I think that Frank Zane could easily have lost 5 pounds if he needed to at his best, and he would have been Mr. Olympia probably in this classic physique division. So maybe Frank Zane will come back. I've seen some pictures of him in his 70s, and he looks pretty damn good, I got to tell you.
Let's go to Go Home. Dave, back in the 90s, one of the popular supplements that Metrics put out was HMB. However, in recent times, it seems that HMB has been all but forgotten in the sports supplement industry. Why do you think it lost its popularity, and is it something you would still recommend?
HMB was a leucine metabolite, believe it or not. We all know that leucine is a key signaling factor to start the protein machinery, in repair of muscle post-workout. So they did some experimentations, and they found that by using HMB, that it worked pretty similar to the leucine and more effectively at starting the protein machinery repair process going, so to speak. So they started putting that in supplements. Metrics had added it to one of their shakes. When they had the original white packet, and they had a black packet with HMB. I loved it. I used to go through 25 of those a day probably, and well, maybe not 25, but at least 8 of them a day, and they were great. But the key is that HMB is very, very expensive. So they found that the expense that it required to put HMB in a product didn't really add that many benefits above just having regular leucine or very high, branch chain amino acid residues. As a matter of fact, a good whey isolate has so much leucine in it already that you don't even need to add anything extra. So you take 30 grams of a whey isolate post-workout, and then you add HMB to it, you really don't get much of a benefit anymore. Now, if you look at any AIDS patients, if you know any AIDS patients, and you look at some of the supplementation they give them, the government produces something, I think it's called Juven. I think it's like HMB with some other anti-catabolic type, ingredients in there, and they give that to them to try to, help their nutritional status, so to speak. Does it help? Who knows? I just think it was an overrated supplement, but at the end of the day, Bill Phillips of EAS fame, Muscle Media 2000 fame, pumped that stuff so strongly that everyone wanted to get their hands on it. And I think it was one of those supplements that just didn't stand the test of time.
You're watching Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Reminder, go to our YouTube page, our Species Nutrition YouTube page. Dave just released a whole new catalog of videos about the whole line of Species Nutrition products. That's youtube.com/Species Nutrition. As we go back to the Muscle Central Forum and check in with your pal Sal. Dave, you want to hear some poetry?
Sure.
Because we have some poetry here. All right,
I love poetry. My father's a poet. Although my father told me that you don't have to rhyme to be a really good poet.
There you go. So let's see if your pal Sal has what it takes. Dave and Sid, how do I hate your show? Let me count the ways. I hate it to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. Your thoughts?
Very Shakespearean.
Well done. Question, what is your opinion on PCT during TRT? Some doctors don't consider it necessary. I think, however, that any type of treatment should be clinical in order to be efficient through time.
Well, I hate initials. So, TRT is testosterone replacement therapy. And PCT is post-cycle therapy. Now, post-cycle therapy implies you're doing an anabolic steroid cycle. Taking 100 milligrams of testosterone replacement every week is really not, a steroid cycle. Because theoretically, you don't go off it. It's replacement therapy. So if you're on replacement therapy for the next, how many years you're going to be alive, you probably don't need to do any HCG. However, if you feel like your testicles are a little shrunken up, or maybe you just don't feel like so good in terms of sex drive, you might want to throw a little HCG in there, 2,000 units a couple times a week, for a few weeks just to kind of boost yourself up again. The only time you really need, I was on a hormone replacement therapy, I believe it was almost 8 years, and I never did any HCG, and I felt great. And then when I wanted to get my wife pregnant, I went off the the testosterone replacement therapy, and I started the HCG, and everything worked great. So I don't think there's any reason to it. When a woman is on birth control pills, she's not taking extra stuff to stimulate her natural production of estrogen. You don't need to. She's taking an artificial stimulus. So once again, it's a personal decision, but it's really unnecessary.
Let's go to our livestream.com live chat questions and go to Darrell88 or Daryl88. What's your opinion, Dave, on Roman Fritz? Now that we know he needs to get bigger, what protocol would you advise him to make to get growing like Michael Lockett style?
Well, I think Roman has put a lot of size on since he's turned pro, and since he's only in his young, I don't think he's even past 25 yet. I think he's still 24. His problem is that he comes in a little flat at these shows because he gets very neurotic at the end and he does it, so to speak. I think we're going to see him at this week's Nordic Pro a lot fuller because he's been sending me pictures than he was in Prague, which he probably was a little nervous for. He looks great already. He looks like he's 10 pounds bigger just from eating, okay? And I told him, I said, I don't know if he's going to listen, but I said, burger and fries every day starting today before you go to bed because that'll keep him full. When you're that hard and your metabolism is that fast, if you look too good before you go to bed, you're guaranteed to wake up too flat in the morning. So if you give yourself a little buffer by having some junk food, it does help. And I think that will help him, and hopefully he'll take my advice on that. And I think we're going to see a different Roman Fritz. And I think, I think he's doing the Ferrigno Legacy Classic too. So we're going to see him a couple more times on stage. He's going to figure out the formula that works for him. Does he need to be a little bigger? Absolutely. What bodybuilder doesn't? He's got a big frame. He can hold a lot of muscle on his body. His back could certainly come up. But he's got a lot of gifts and tools right now that can do some damage this weekend and the weekend after.
Good one here from Billy T. What's your opinion on Jose Raymond doing the Open? Will he be misjudged by being a 212 guy?
I think he's going to do well. I think that there's a couple decent guys in that lineup, but I think that he's going to be very dangerous, to be honest with you. I don't know if he's going to win, but I predict a top 3 placing for him. Now, there is a 212 division there, which he can probably easily win. There's a lot of guys in the 212 division, but he can easily win that division. And I'm not sure if maybe at the last minute he might jump in that, but I think he really wants to see how he does against the Open guys. And I think the Open class is pretty weak because remember, there's 2 shows on the same day. There's the Nordic Pro in Finland, and then there's the Phoenix Europa Pro, which is where Jose's going, which Jose won last year's 212 event. So I think Jose figured, the lineup is split. There's not a lot of big guys left because a lot of guys are done from the Olympia. Here's a good chance to maybe snag a pro win in the Open category. And you know what? If he does that, you got to take your cap off to the guy. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. When was the last 212 guy who won a pro event? I could probably remember maybe it was Silvio Samuel or maybe Kevin English, and that was a long time ago.
Let's go to Lats for Days. What exactly, and I'm trying to translate here, what exactly does the NPC mean by your favorite classic pose at the end of mandatory rounds?
Well, in the women's bodybuilding, it's your favorite most muscular, but most women don't hit a crab most muscular. Usually they hit the lat spread on their toes or something feminine. So what they mean by your favorite classic pose, the guy can do anything he wants. The guy can hit a most muscular if he wants, but they're judging classic bodybuilding. So guys will hold their hands up in the air kind of like a Zanish pose, or they'll come up with their own creativity, and I think that's what makes it good because you want to own it. There'll be guys that have their own trademark poses that they will hit on stage. Victor kind of hits that most muscular with tilted. That's kind of like his trademark pose. Lavroni would hit the side, the most muscular before he hit the side triceps or the high side chest pose. And I think that's what they want. They want these guys to be creative and create their own pose.
Let's go to Matt Potter. Dear Dave, I hate this show so much I had to drop a mortgage payment for your guru seminar just so I don't have to listen to this show anymore. Can you give us your rundown on the new NPC? And of course, he's referring to NPC Global. Clear up confusion and ask Sarah LeBlanc to come back to her home. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a shame that we lost Sarah LeBlanc. But hey, everyone. I believe that everyone should have the right to make their own decisions in life and go where they feel their heart is pulling them, so to speak. Doesn't mean I agree with it, but it means that I believe that they have the right to make that decision. I don't know what the latest status on this is. I believe that they are not going to be able to use that name. I think they're already changing the name of the organization. I wish them the best of luck. Like I said, if you want to be a big fish in a small pond, you go to another organization. If you want to be the best, you want to compete with the best. I always wanted to compete against the best because I always wanted to say if I won, I was the best. And, but there's people that don't care. I know guys that like to do shows where there's one person in and beat one person, and they'll go around telling everyone that they won the show. I know people that have beat no one, that there was no one in their class, and they were going around bragging about how they won the overall. They didn't have to beat anyone. So it is what it is. And, if Lee Thompson feels that was what he needed to do, then let him go do it, Meanwhile, back at the ranch, so to speak, in the NPC and the IFBB, it'll be business as usual. And I think that's what's the most important.
We stick with our Facebook page. Again, our Facebook page is facebook.com/rxmuscle.com, all one word. Let's go to Christos Panayotou. Dave, I hate this show so much I'd rather be crushed by a bike in a random white Mercedes with no license. Oh, wow.
I think that's me. No front license plate.
Gruesome. Do you think carbohydrates are essential for muscle growth? Is it a good idea to run a hypercaloric keto diet in the off-season in order to stay lean while building muscle at the same time?
You don't need carbs to build muscle, but it makes it a lot easier. Why is that? Because carbohydrates are a fuel source. The body needs fuel, okay? If the body is using fats and protein, which it should be using for building muscle, as fuel, because you're not giving your body carbs, you might not have enough protein and fat available to build muscle. So rather than try to make things so complicated, because if you eat a ton of fat and a ton of protein and don't eat any carbs, you're still going to invariably convert some of that excessive protein into carbs. It's just going to happen because your body, when it does high-intensity exercise, must use carbs for fuel. And if you don't feed your body the carbs, it'll turn the amino acids into carbs. So there's always some carbs in everything you eat. So the bottom line is that, a ketogenic diet off season, unless you're a guy who just wants to stay ripped and you're not really interested in putting that much muscle on, is probably not the best idea. That doesn't mean that you need to eat an excessive amount of carbs. It means you eat your protein and the fat and you figure out what the bare minimum carbs you need are to fuel your body during the day, during your workouts, so that all the protein and fat you're eating gets used for building and repairing muscle. That's how I structured the off-season for my guys.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Reminder, tomorrow, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, we are going to have Iron Debate with Dennis James, John Romano, Chris Osito. You're not going to want to miss this. It's going to be sort of a post-recap of the Olympia and the post-Olympia tour. A lot of controversial topics on the table. Dennis James, Chris Osito, and John Romano. We go back to our live stream questions and go to Pedro Perez. Looking at Kai in Spain, Dave, what's your take on his physique?
Well, my take is that he wasn't in contest shape, that's for sure. Kai always looks good, and he looked good in Spain. He just wasn't ready to get on stage. So obviously, he knew weeks and weeks before he wasn't doing the Olympia. Because if he was close to contest shape, I would say, well, maybe at the last minute he decided not to do it. But I had a feeling he knew he wasn't doing the Olympia. Why he brought this to the public that he couldn't do it or that he was being forced out of it or whatever the excuses he made, I have no idea. Maybe one day we will find out. But to this day, he cost his own, he was the chooser of his own fate because he didn't sign the Olympia contract.
We now go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you want to join us on Instagram or follow us on Instagram, it is Instagram/official_RxMuscle. Let's go to Begino82. Dave, do bodybuilders on steroids utilize more protein than natural bodybuilders? So do natural bodybuilders need higher amounts of protein, or is that a myth? And right now, second question, right now, which young bodybuilder do you see with a bright future?
Young bodybuilder, I still think Justin Compton would fill that void right there. But I think Cody Montgomery obviously is the youngest, who's probably got the most potential. But I'm right now, I'm pretty high on Justin Compton. As far as protein intake, when you take steroids, you build muscle at an accelerated rate, right? We all know that. Where does the muscle come from? It comes from protein. So obviously, you're utilizing the protein you're eating more efficiently. Okay, that doesn't mean that you need less protein if you're a natural bodybuilder, because if you eat less protein, you risk not taking in enough protein and then compromising your body's ability to recover. So probably whether you're natural or you're not, you probably need about the same amount of protein. Just being non-natural, a guy who's on anabolic steroids or growth hormone will utilize his protein that he's eating a little more efficiently, and that's the only nuance or the only difference.
Let's go to Benadu14. Hey, Dave, when you first started using performance-enhancing drugs, did you have to hide it? And at what point in your career did you open up to friends and family and others about the drug use?
Well, I lived at home, so I think my dad always knew about it, but I think he just didn't want to ask. He didn't. It was the don't ask, don't tell, type of thing. But I had growth hormone in the refrigerator, so he obviously knew something was going on. My dad was always pretty open about that stuff. He knew I wasn't hanging out on the street corner shooting heroin or anything like that, so I think he was happy about that. I really didn't hide it. Maybe for the very first time I used it, maybe for 6 months, I really didn't talk about it with anyone. But, once I competed, I was pretty open about it. I was one of the guys who was telling people how to use the stuff because I felt that, there was so much misinformation out of there. I was giving a lot of info out. So I never really hid my usage. But at the same time, I didn't go on, take a loudspeaker and announce, to my neighbors, hey, I'm taking anabolic steroids. It's just not politically correct to do that. But within my circle of bodybuilders and online, I never hid it because I feel that, information should be freely shared and that, if it's done responsibly, it can prevent people from, having problems.
Let's go back to our live stream questions and check in with Edward Cass. Flex Wheeler is 50 and getting back in shape. He has a rare disease. Can you explain what exactly he has? Also, where in the world were you when the ninjas attacked him?
I wasn't around him when the ninjas attacked. I don't think anyone was because I don't think the ninjas ever did. But he has focal glomerular sclerosis of the kidney tubules. What that means is I believe it's an autoimmune disease where the body starts laying down connective tissue and scar tissue on his kidney tubules. Now, the kidney tubules are the filtering mechanisms of the blood. They filter the blood, they take out the impurities, and you obviously pee out the impurities through your urine, and then the good stuff gets reabsorbed. If those kidney tubules are not working efficiently because they're constantly being scarred over and scarred over and scarred over, it takes a long time to destroy the kidneys because you have so many, millions of these little filtering apparatus. But over the course of time, and this is usually an inherited disease, so I'm sure it runs in his family, your kidney tubules break down. Now, I'm sure being on anabolic steroids, having high blood pressure, and all these other things probably sped the process up a little bit in his body. But theoretically, even though he has a kidney transplant and has a new kidney, from what he told me at least, because he still has the disease in his body, theoretically his body can destroy the new kidney too. Now, he's on immunosuppressive drugs to prevent his body from rejecting the kidney. So that might also suppress his immune system from attacking the kidney. I believe that probably will help him and preserve that kidney for a way, way longer, probably throughout his whole life. I don't think he's going to ever need another kidney transplant. He just has to be careful, watch his creatinine levels, and make sure he takes his medications. But it's amazing with technology today that people can live with a kidney donor, kidney donation. The thing that irks me is when I see people who have a donated kidney and they're doing tons of gear and they have high blood pressure and it's like they don't even care they got a second chance. Those people kind of are a disappointment.
Let's go to Getty. Dave, while you were doing your time away, did you train inside the cell? And he says, ... push-ups.
I wasn't in a cell. I was in what they call Camp Cupcake or Camp Fed, they call it. It was a federal prison, very low. There was no even fence around it. I could have just walked out of there if I wanted to. Obviously, that would have been stupid because I would have been put in a much higher level penitentiary. But I was in a camp, or a low facility. And we lived in like dorm rooms almost with bunk beds, and we had free access to walk around. There was no cells, and there was actually a weight area that we worked out outside. It was covered with a canopy, so it kind of like blocked out most of the weather. But when it snowed or rained and it went sideways, it hit you in the face. And it was. I remember we were squatting, and it's very hard to squat without a mirror. Okay, so you're looking out on this wildlife preserve, which is where we were in West Virginia, and I'm squatting, and it had to be like maybe 10 degrees outside. Snow was coming down, and we were squatting with gloves and a winter jacket on, and I'm like, 405 for reps. I'm like, it doesn't get much better than this. I screamed it out, and everyone looked around at me, and they're like, oh yeah. And I guarantee every single person who was in that little canopy working out that day will remember me saying that, because I don't think it gets much better than that.
Let's go to Steedy86. I hate this show more than winning the I Hate This Show competition on Ask Dave and not getting my prize. Dave, I keep reading a lot about some people not being able to eat carbs with fats in the same meal, and they should avoid doing this. Is there actual science behind this, or is it just the latest guru trend?
I made, all my years of doing this, and I probably said this before, I made one mistaken error. Okay, I said probably one fact that was not really accurate, and I wish I never said it, because it's still being thrown in my face and people still ask me about it. Years and years and years ago, probably in the 90s, I posted on some message board that if you're going to take insulin, you shouldn't combine carbohydrates and fats in the same meal, because it'll make you fat. And it's just not true, because insulin does not cause fat storage Insulin does not cause fatty acids to be stored as fat. It causes carbohydrates to be stored as fat. So eating fats in the meal with carbohydrates is not going to make you more likely to gain fat. And the reason I need to clarify that is because a lot of guys, when they're carbing, I have a lot of guys who are carbing up the last 2 days before a show. I never cut fats out, because if you cut the fats out and put carbs in, you're actually eating less calories. And a lot of times you go flat. The fats keep you full while you're carb loading. Because if you take those fats out, then your body starts using the carbs you're eating to carb up with for fuel, and you wind up having low glycogen levels. So to answer the question, you can eat fats and carbs in the same meal as long as they're not excessive amounts. That's all. Just like anything else. And if you're taking insulin and you're taking the two together, that's fine too. The only time I don't tell people to use fats in their meals is post-workout, because fats do delay the absorption of food into the bloodstream. Post-workout, we want those carbs and we want that protein getting into the bloodstream and into the muscle cells as fast as possible. So no fats post-workout.
Johnny, our producer, I hope you're listening. You're going to cut this next clip. It's going to be titled, How to Get a Sponsorship from a Supplement Company. This one comes from tflex_17. Dave, I hate this show so much I'd rather run a presidential campaign for Steve Blackman with the slogan, Why Cut Back? I'm currently looking for a supplement sponsor, someone who has high aspirations for success in the sport and looking to make a name for myself. I've been told that a strong social media presence is what companies are looking for the most in the modern day era. Having learned that, I've been working on building my Instagram and have gained over 4,000 followers in about 6 weeks, including the likes of Fat Grips and Sheik. As someone with a company, what do you think I should be doing to increase my chances of becoming sponsored? And he thanks us for the Nitrolize. He loves the product and will be purchasing more of it.
It's a tough question. I asked Rich Gaspari the same question last week on Live With, and he said, his company looks at social media following. That's like a stat they look for now. The bottom line is, when you have a supplement company and I have to spend money on sponsoring someone, I have to say to myself, how am I going to make back the money that I'm giving them, whether it be in free product, whether it be in money and free product, plus all the travel I got to send them on? Am I going to make my money back, from this person and make money in addition to that? And, a lot of guys want to just, get a sponsorship, sit back on their butts, go to the gym and compete and do their thing and not do anything for the company. You wearing your shirt around is a nice, billboard, but it's not going to make me produce more sales. So the guys that really are aggressive on social media, and I don't even care. You don't have to have 1 million followers for me to want to hire you. I want someone who I know is going to go out there and promote the brand. When I worked for Metrex back in the 90s, I wore their clothing everywhere. I carried the gym bag. I had a jacket. All I talked about was Metrex. Even I made my own training video and I wore Metrex gear in there because I wanted to show the company that I was grateful for what they were doing for me and the sponsorship they gave me. And I wanted to show people that I love the products. Okay, I don't think enough people out there do that. There's a lot more people out there, and I'm not saying this, I'm saying this generically. There's a lot of people out there who are only out for themselves. They want to promote Joe Smith. And while they like the fact that they're sponsored by someone, they're more interested in promoting Joe Smith. And it's obvious when we look at their Facebook, when we look at what they do, social media-wise, that they're interested in promoting themselves and not the company. That's not the guy I want working for me. That's not the guy Rich Gaspari wants working for him. if I'm going to, take a chance and I'm going to sponsor you, even if it's just product initially and exposure, I want to see that you want to work for me. When Johnny Styles first started working here, I didn't just hire him off the street. He came in and worked for me at the Olympia for free. He flew to his own, he flew down there on his own to show me that he wanted to work for the company. And that showed me this is a guy I want with me because this is a guy who's loyal to the brand. And that's the most important thing. The companies are always scouring the internet. They're always scouring the shows to see who's the next guy they want to hire. Myself as well. But you have to impress us, and you have to be sincere about that impression because otherwise, you know what? After a month, we'll know that you're not interested in what you're doing, and then you're not going to last. So once again, you got to be committed to the company that you put your name on. It's not just another checkbox on your resume.
Ordinarily, we would close out on a question like that, but we got another great question. This one from Torin_Dave XXXV, who just week after week produces gems. And Dave, this is about you and Chris Osito. He asks, what is the difference between you and Chris Osito when you prep your clients? This is a question that I've read before on the forums, but finally somebody asked this on the show, and I think a lot of people are interested in this answer.
Chris and I, when we confer about what we do to help people get in shape, it's very similar. If we got to go low carb, we go low carb. We believe in conditioning is the primary thing that you're shooting for to get an athlete on stage with. Because after all, as a prep coach, that's pretty much all we can control is conditioning. How we go about it is a little different. I'm a little bit more scientific about how I do things. I'm very methodical. I believe in that there has to be a reason behind everything I do. Scientifically speaking, I want the client to know what the reason is behind everything I'm doing and why I'm giving you this and why I'm giving you that and what hormones produced and what you're going to do. Chris Osito is more instinctual. He's been doing this a very long time. He's got the education background, so he's not doing it. He's not a guy who's doing it from street smarts. He's got intellectual smarts. He's got science smarts, but he also is very instinctual the way he does things. And once again, when you're a prep coach for 25 years, 30 years, these instincts just develop in you. And he likes to just go by whim. So he might be torturing you for 4 days, and then he might go say eat a piece of pizza or have a muffin. So I think Chris is a little more instinctual, whereas I'm kind of more scientific and methodical. The outcomes are similar. Chris also, caters more to people on an emotional level in the sense that, a lot of his that's why he doesn't have a lot of clients. A lot of his pro athletes, he'll stay with them at the house. He'll go there a week before to the show with them, and he caters to them because, at the elite level, there's a psychological component that you cannot quantify. And it's very difficult. These guys sometimes psych themselves out, and to have Chris there babysitting them, the last week, it is really helpful to them. And once again, that's the ability to do that is great because, but you can't have a lot of clients. I'd rather help a multitude of people because I'm into I want everyone to get results as opposed to helping a very small group of people and maybe charging a little more. So he probably charges more, but he helps the people a little bit more in terms of, how much time he spends with them. And really, that's a personal decision. Chris doesn't do this for a living. He does this because he loves it. He doesn't need the money from it. He's a successful real estate person. And, the motivations behind why people do things really can dictate what their techniques are. But I want to mention one more thing, Sid. Sorry. We have one more. I added 2 more spots to my The Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course that will be given next Saturday, 9 a.m. here at the RxMuscle Studios all day long. It's a 10-hour class. If people want to sign up, there's 1 spot available. I had made 2 spots available. One more person signed up. I have 1 spot available. It's a small class. It will be given here. The last 2 we gave were super success. People really loved it. You get a free manual I give out. I give an 85 or 90-page manual with all my notes and all my whole playbook, so to speak. You get that. That's exclusive. You can't buy that anywhere. That's exclusively for the people who come to the course. You could sign up at DavePalumbo.com. Once again, don't wait. If you're going to come to this course and you're thinking about coming to the course, do it now because once that 1 seat fills up, and it will, that'll be it. And I'm looking forward, once again, to giving this course next weekend here at the RxMuscle Studios.
Your Pascal, email me, sid@speciesnutrition.com. We've never been hit by a poem before, so you win the Nitrolyze pre-workout by Species Nutrition. Tflex_17, email me, sid@speciesnutrition.com. You win the macadamia nut oil. Now you can grow your Species Nutrition collection. That's going to do for Ask Dave. Reminder, tomorrow afternoon, special time, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Iron Debate, Chris Osito, John Romano, and special guest Dennis James. A lot to break down. It is going to be one of those episodes. Once again, Iron Debate, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For our producer, Johnny Styles, and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Have a good one.